Okay, before we start making anything, let's just talk about games for a second. So we talked about Miss V and Alicia and I planned for you all to make a board game throughout the week, right? So each one of us was going to do a different chunk of the board game. So there's different ways that you can do this, right? You can have a flat board game. If you have a piece of cardboard or a big piece of paper, you can either make a maze like this one is. You can make, if you think of like Candyland, a row of boxes, which if you want some more examples, I have a ton of games. I can show you some different examples if you feel like you need them. But I also, for those of you that most of you haven't done anything yet, and I didn't even think about this when Miss V and Alicia and I were chatting. This is a game called Gnomes at Night. The company is called Peaceable Kingdom. One of the really neat things about this brand of games is that they're cooperation games. So instead of playing against someone, you work together. Let's see if I'm lucky and the game pieces are actually in here. So cool. All right. So these are the game pieces. But what's unique about this game, which if you all are interested in building a game like this today, we'll work on it. It's not the kind of game where the piece goes on top of the board. Two pieces magnet together, and each player plays on one side. And you work together to try to get the different treasures. So as I was thinking of different ways to make game pieces, this is one of the things that I was going to show you. Because if you have two magnets, you can essentially do a vertical game board instead, or you could also do it like this, where you have one magnet on the bottom and the other one on top, and you move the top game piece through the bottom. I just thought that'd be a really fun way to do it. So I'm curious what you all think about this. Do you want to try to do a magnetic game piece? I can show you how to make some other game pieces too. And then I can show you some different ways to make your board also. Does that sound like a good plan for today? Let me show you some other ways to make your game pieces in case you don't have magnets. Let's start with that. And then I'll show you how we could do the magnet pieces. Okay. Now, Lexi and Isaiah, let me just double check and make sure I'm remembered correctly. Okay, Lexi and Isaiah, you all made your game pieces. If you don't mind, can you take a minute to type into the chat what you used and how you made it? So that way the other kids can use you as a resource and learn from what you learned. In the meantime, while they're getting that in there, I'm going to show you some other ways that you can make game pieces too. Now, there's a few things that you want to think about. If this is your first time making a board game, it's probably wise to keep it on the simpler side so you can get the experience underneath your belt and then build from there. If you've made a game board before and you're interested in making it a little more complicated, I'll give you some little ideas that you can do to try to make it, to level up a little bit, to make it a little more challenging. So for basic game pieces, if you want, you can just start with a piece of paper. And you can be as creative or not creative as you would like. So you literally can do something as easy as a strip of paper and then fold it into an accordion. Right, so we're going to fold back and forth, back and forth. And then you want to leave one side a little bit longer. That's going to help it stand up. So if you wanted, you could have game pieces that are like this, just to kind of mark the spot. You could decorate them if you wanted to. You could put faces on there. You could also, if you wanted to be a little fancier, you could cut it into the shape of a person. If that seems like a little more fun to you. You could do random shapes if you wanted to. Kind of depends on the theme of your game, how you want to include your game pieces. All right, so this is a simple way just to kind of do like a place marker. If you wanted to, you could even add just like a touch of glue. It might make it stand up a little bit better. All right, so that's one simple possibility. You could also, if you just want a marker, like a place marker, you could also just use bottle caps. I've got some bottle caps from my dog's medication that he's taking. So it has the child-proof thing that's, a little wobbly in there. But so you could just use these as place markers. You could decorate them, or you could add something on top of them, right? So one of the reasons I chose these is because they have these pieces in there, which would allow me, if I wanted to add in, let's see, where did my person go? Aha. So with pipe cleaners, you could make a person. And then the pipe cleaner legs just kind of fit right in this little spot here. There you go. So that's another way that you could make a place marker. All right. Now, if you wanted to think of something, a part of your game. So if you think of checkers, right? When you get all the way to the other side of checkers, you get kinged. You get another piece added on top. And when you have that added piece on top, you get to move in a different way. So if you want to make your game pieces in a way that when you make cards and such with Alicia on Friday, that you want to add something to your piece to show that your piece has either special powers or can do something different from the other pieces, you can do that too. That's not going to stand up. Right, so you can either just stack bottle caps on top of each other. If you want to keep it simple, you can also use coins. So maybe a quarter is the place marker, and you can add other coins, dimes, nickels, pennies on top to change how your piece can move or what your piece can do. Or you can do something where you either add a color change, or you can just swap out pieces altogether, right? So let's say this is the piece that I'm going to use, but then I want another piece that will let me hop over other players, because maybe in your game there's a card that lets you hop over other players. So that maybe I want that piece to look totally different and maybe a little more fun. Those little pokies. So maybe I switch that one out, and then when I have this one, I can hop over players, or maybe I can take people's turns, depending on what kind of rules you want to come up with. Okay, so those are a few ways to make game pieces. Let's see. Lexi and Isaiah said that they made a girl, boy, pets, and a villain. Oh, what a great idea. Out of paper and popsicle sticks. Absolutely. Great idea. Folded a piece of paper into 4 squares, glued them together, and drew our characters and cut them out. Absolutely. Popsicle sticks are always such a great. What can you not use popsicle sticks for? So using popsicle sticks to make your game pieces will absolutely also work. That is a wonderful idea. Okay, so let's talk about the magnet game pieces real fast, and then we'll talk about the board, since a lot of you need, you guys need your board too. Okay, so going back to this example of Gnomes at Night. Right, so we've got the 2 pieces. Depending on how intricate you want your pieces to be, depending on what your game is and all that other information that you want to make sure you're thinking about when you're making your pieces, you can see what magnets you have around the house. Of course, you have to check the magnets to make sure that they are attracted to each other. Just a reminder, some magnets will attract, they'll pull together, and some magnets will repel, they'll push apart. So clearly you want ones that will attract. If you're having a hard time finding magnets, we have magnets around us so much and so often that sometimes we even forget they're there. So you can even think of, if you have a Thomas the Train set, they have magnets on the end that might be a way for you to make some game pieces out of, if it's okay with your family to use those pieces. I got this one from my refrigerator. And then this one is from the child-proof locks that we don't even really use anymore, but we still have the magnets around. And so I matched this magnet with that magnet, making sure that they fit. And if you're going to use magnetic pieces, you want to think about how your board is going to be. Do you want your board to be parallel to the ground, so it's flat like a game board that we oftentimes see? If that's the case, you're going to have to build a little stand so that you can get your hand underneath to move the magnets. A few ideas is if you take a cereal box and leave the edges but cut a hole in the middle, that would leave a little spot for you to get your hand in there. You could use a Lego base, right? Build like a Lego box with a hole in there so you can fit your hand in there. Or you could also just use cut pieces of cardboard to prop it up so you can fit your hand underneath to be able to move the board pieces. If you would like a vertical game board, which I am super excited about, I think that's what I'm going to make. You will also need a way to hold it up. Again, my suggestion would be to get maybe a cereal box or another box and just cut a slit into the box so you can slide it in. This particular box has, this game, because it was made in a factory, it has these plastic pieces to hold things together. So if you had a way of making something similar, you could take a piece of cardboard and slit it down the side, but I think that would be a little more frustrating because you'd have to fit the pieces just right for it to stay. So I think a slit in a box would probably work best. All right. How is everybody doing? Does anybody need help figuring out maybe a theme for their game board? We haven't talked too much about that yet. Does anyone want to help problem solving if they're going to do a flat board, a vertical board? I'm curious who's going to do a magnet piece. That way I want to make sure I'm giving you all the information that you need. So if you have any questions, if you need some help problem solving, make sure you get that into the chat box so I can help you out with that. Okay. So let's talk about theme a little bit. Lexi and Isaiah, did the two of you, Arden, of course, Arden's asking if she missed anything important. Of course you missed something important. No, I'm just kidding. Everything I say is very important. Arden, I don't know how long you were gone for, but we were just talking about the magnet pieces and whether or not you want your board to be parallel to the ground, so it's like a regular board game, or if you want it vertical. You'll need to start making those decisions so we know how to make your game pieces. See, Emily's letting you didn't miss anything important. For your theme, your theme is going to help you figure out kind of what decorations you want on your board game. Oh, Emily, I'm sorry you have to go. It was nice having you for a bit. If you do get a chance to make a game when you send it in, I'm very curious what you'll make. Okay, so you need to think about your theme. Your theme is going to help you know what to use to decorate your board. It's going to help you figure out kind of what rules and stuff you're going to have. Maybe how your pieces are going to move. You guys will work through that with Alicia, but keep that in mind as you're building your game board so that you know what you want to do. And then it's also going to help you figure out what your pieces should look like and what your board should look like, right? So the next thing I recommend you decide is if you want to do a game board that's like a path, like Candyland, or Chutes and Ladders, where you just go forward or you go back. That is one way to make your game board. I'll show you that. And then I'll show you a maze kind like Gnomes at Night has. All right, I'm going to use a smaller piece of paper so that you all can see it in the screen very well. But you probably want a bigger piece. I also, if all you have is paper will work fine. If you'd like a bigger piece, you can take a paper grocery bag and cut it open. You'll end up with a long rectangle. That's a good size paper to use, and you can also use cardboard. Making it out of cardboard is going to make your board last a little bit longer. So hopefully your game is super fun and you want to make it over and over and over again, or play it over and over and again. And cardboard will help that last a little bit longer. But I'll show you on paper. All right, so if you want to make a path-like board game, you're going to choose a place to start. Let's see if you can see that. All right, so I've got my starting spot here. And then I'm going to draw kind of a snaky shape. All right, so here's the other thing to keep in mind as you're drawing and you're making your game pieces. You want to make sure that your game board and your pieces match each other in terms of size, right? I mean, if I make these squares this small, and this is a piece I'm using, it's not going to fit on there. So you want to make sure that you're making a game piece that fits your board properly, keeping in mind that there's probably going to be more than one person playing. So you need to figure out, what are you going to do if two people are on the same spot? Do you have to skip the other person? Do you have to stay behind? Can you stack on top of them? Can you knock them off the board? Those are all the rules you get to come up with. I am going to try to use this. So I'm going to use this to kind of measure my squares. All right, so this is clearly a very simple game board. You can pretty much only go forward or backward. This is a great way to start and get some practice with how to make a game board, and then you can make it more complicated as you have things figured out. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. All right, so now that I've got my squares on here, I need some help from you all, right? When we play board games and we land on squares, they're usually not just blank, right? There's certain squares are gonna have different directions on them. So this is start. Will be nice. We won't make anyone do anything on this one, but maybe if you land on this one, you have to go back 2, right? So if you're playing and your piece lands here, you have to go back 2 squares, right? But maybe if you land on this one, you get to go ahead 3. And maybe here you get stuck for 1 turn. All right, let me make sure that you can see this properly. All right, so if you think about different games like Candyland and Chutes and Ladders, some of the squares are blank, but some of the squares have directions on them. So if you land on them, you get to do something different. Let me add one more. Maybe if you land here on this one, you get wings to fly ahead 5 spaces. All right, so this is the type of thing you want to think about when you're making your game pieces. Maybe this is the kind of square that when you land on it, maybe you can have a set of wings that you can add to your piece. So then everyone knows that you landed on there and you get to go ahead the 5 spaces, and then you have to give it back when you're done. That's an idea of something you can do. Okay, let me pause for a moment and see, does anybody have any questions? Do you need any help problem solving? Do you have either too many ideas or trying to figure out how to get them all together? Let me know if there's any problem solving, or if you came up with a really neat idea that you want to share, tell us that too, because that is also very inspiring when people have really good ideas. All right, I'll keep my eye out. If anyone needs help, feel free to put it in there. Let's see, I'm going to add a couple more. Let's see, this one you go back, go forward, get stuck, go forward. Ooh. All right, you know that one spot in the game that everybody always tries to avoid because it's terrible to land on it? I'm going to make one of those. This one's going to say go back to start. All right, so if you land there, you got to go all the way back to start. Okay. And of course, you could add more. If you wanted to, you really could put something in each box too. But let's say you play this for a while and it gets a little boring because it's goes straight. There's no, can't really choose which way to go. You can always add more to your path, right? So I can take this square and I can connect it to that square. And put some of these in between, right? So maybe if you land on this spot, make sure you can see that. Let's see. Right, so this is start. And I added, if you land on the second square, you can take this shortcut, right? But maybe this square right here, maybe something terrible happens there. Maybe, anyone have any suggestions? Ooh, Katrina, Sophie, I'm not sure which one typed you, which one of you typed this in, but it says I'm making a board game out of paper and paper plates. Tell me, how are you using the paper plates with your paper? I'm very curious. You gave me some really neat ideas, but I'm curious what ideas you already have going. Are you connecting the paper plates to the paper so you have some board that's on the paper plate and some board is on the table? Or I don't know if this is what you're doing, but maybe you could make a multi-layer board. So your paper's on the bottom and then you have layers of plates that you can hop up and down different levels with your game pieces. You would have to figure out how to get your plates stacked if that's something that you wanted to do, but I bet Legos would work. A really hefty pipe cleaner structure would work, and popsicle sticks. If you build a frame out of popsicle sticks to put those plates on, you could make a multi-level board. I hadn't thought about that either. I would love if one of you would make a multi-level board and send it to us, because that would be so cool. That would be really cool. I'd also like to add that when V and Alicia and I were planning, we also had a ton of ideas of what we can do to make games together when we get to be in camp together, and how fun that is going to be when we all get to be together in the same space. I think we'll come up with some really neat games, and then we'll get to play them throughout the summer together, which I also think would be really, really neat. Okay, anyone else with any questions, ideas, anything, please get it in the chat. Katrina and Sophia, I really am curious how you glued the paper to the paper plate. That is a neat idea too. So in case you did not talk to, let's see here. You can also, if you don't want to draw your squares, you can cut squares out of pieces of paper to glue down. Maybe that's what Katrina and Sophia are doing, where you, let's see here. You could do it like this too. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. All right, so I folded one part of my paper. Oh, this yellow doesn't work so well on this camera. All right, so that left me with some lines I can cut on so that my squares will be the same shape. Ooh, and I just thought of another neat idea. This is why I love doing things like this. You all send me ideas. Have so much fun with your ideas. We come up with new ideas. All right, so now that we have these two strips, I'm gonna fold them again so they're all, they don't have to be exactly the same size, but about the same size. So it leaves me marks on the paper. I'm going to cut on those marks. Okay. So you could make a bunch of papers like these and then use these to glue down on paper as your game board path, right? And then the other thing that you could do is if you have different colored paper, the different colors could mean different things, right? So if you want your game to be a little more challenging and a little more intricate with more rules and such, you could make decks of cards that match the different colors of the spots. And then each time you land on yellow, you take a yellow card and see what that card tells you to do. And then when you land on green, you can see what those cards tell you to do. Another idea, if you happen to have them around the house, a pack of Post-it notes. could also be used as your squares. That way you wouldn't have to cut them. And you could glue those down. Then I also have another idea that has just occurred to me that I think would be a lot of fun. Let me make a few more squares here. I just measured it to make sure it's about the same size. Okay, I'm excited about this. What if you have your stack of squares? I'm going to mix up the green and the yellow a little bit. This is another idea. If you have just a piece of paper that says start, you could put it down on a table. And then each time you play, you could build your board without gluing them down so that each time you play, it's a little bit different. And you can set up the rules of how the cards would get set up. And then you could still have the different directions on here, right? So go back one space. Get stuck for one turn. Right, so then you could choose how many squares you're going to put directions on, and then you shuffle them, and each time you lay them out, the board game is a little bit different. Now this one, you wouldn't be able to use the magnetic pieces, right, since you're not gluing it down, but you could use any of the other pieces to mark your board as you go along. And then you could have your end at the end. All right, that is one kind of game board where you follow a path. I'm really liking this idea of this movable game board. I think I'm going to have to develop this a little bit further later today. Okay, that is one way to make a game board. We'll call that the path, the pathway. You can also make a maze like Gnomes at Night. I've got my recycled piece of paper here. All right. So we're going to make a border all the way around the outside of the page. And then we're going to add in the walls for the maze. Now, something that makes it a little bit easier is if you want to come up with the path first, then you know where to and where not to draw walls. And then we're going to erase this one later. Right, so this will be start, and this will be end. So I'm going to build walls in a way that's going to let this path through. And remember, you want to leave other openings so that someone else who's playing may want to go that way. All right, so you're going to fill up your whole page with these different walls. And then you can decide what you want to do. You can color them in. So it's really clear what's wall and what's path. You can also, if you feel like you want to do little details, you can even put maybe little animals spying out just for fun. On the walls. You can decide how you want to decorate it. All right, so then once you have your walls built in here, I'm going to draw a couple more. All right, just for the sake of making sure you all can see what it looks like when we take the line out. I'm not going to finish the other side of the board, so you don't have to wait for me. But if you can see how I built these walls and this path is still available here. I'm going to erase that line. And then the next thing you'll need to do is figure out how you want your pieces to move. If you want, you can let, depending on what rules you make, you can let a piece try to get all the way to the end. And then you can make a rule that if you get stuck in a room or you bump into a wall, that's what ends your time, or what ends your turn. And then you can do timed to see who gets to the end of the maze fastest. You can also, if you would like, you can put in treasures. So I put that star here. I put that star there. Put the star over here. So that maybe the pieces move and you have to go and collect these. So maybe every time you land on a star, you can collect a bead or a bean or a little crumpled piece of paper and see who collects the most by the time they get to the end without bumping into a wall and making a mistake and going the wrong way. And then you also can, if you'd like, you can add squares. And if you do that, you're going to want to color the walls in so you can really tell the difference between where you can move and where you get stuck. And then you can either roll a dice, spin a spinner, or maybe even draw a card to find out how many pieces you're going to move. Okay, so that's another way to make a game board by using a maze. Oh, Katrina and Sophia, you're going to make an instruction manual. That is a fantastic idea. Um, when you have all the rules written down, it makes it easier for everyone to know what they're supposed to do. It makes it easier to teach new people. And then you could even share with a friend what you did, and your friend could make the same board game, and either, through a video chat, or if there's another way, you could actually play the game together, even if you're not in the same space at the same time. That is a really neat idea of adding that instruction manual. All right, so that's the maze one. There's one more game board I'm going to show you. It's going to be, we're going to call it the collecting kind. All right. So this kind of game board is not so much about how far you get, but what you're able to collect along the way. So if you draw a smaller circle within a bigger circle, and then we're going to draw the boxes on the outside circle. All right, we're going to call this start. And end is going to be right next to it. All right, that's the basic gist of the game board. And then we need to figure out what we're going to put in the boxes. So let's see. Does anybody have a quick suggestion for a theme for this game? And that will help us determine what we're going to put in the squares and what we're going to put in the middle to collect. Does anybody have any suggestions? I've got some ideas too, if nobody else does. All right, if you think of anything, go ahead and throw it up there. I'll change my plan. Let's see. I'm going to do a dinosaur theme. So let's say some of these. I'm going to make a quick let's see here. All right, this is my T-Rex. Eyeball. He's got some teeth and he's got these tiny little hands here. All right, here's my T-Rex piece. And then we are going to try to collect dinosaur eggs. Okay. I'm just going to crumple up some pieces of paper to put in the middle. Then we're going to add on here, take 1 egg. Leave 1 egg. We'll do nothing on that one. Let's see. Take 3 eggs. Take your neighbor's eggs. Give all your eggs to your neighbor. All right. Here's our game board. We're going to start here. We'll figure out how we move, whether we have a dice, a spinner, or maybe we draw cards. I'll show you cards in just a second. And then the dinosaur eggs go in the middle. And then my T-Rex, who I have officially fallen in love with. So if you use cards, we've got these pieces that I cut earlier, and we can just add numbers on here. 1, 2, 3. Probably don't want it too bigger than 4 since our board's not that big. All right, so then you would shuffle these. I draw my first card. Ooh, 4. 1. Oop, I got to start on start. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, I get to take 3 eggs. All right, 2, 1, 2. Take my neighbor's eggs. I'm not playing with anyone. That's okay. All right. All right, and then you get the idea. So then you can use the cards to help you move around. And then when you get to the end, you can set the rules. Maybe you can have a double winner. There's a person who gets around the board fastest is one winner, and the person who collects the most eggs is a winner. You can have it be that you have to finish first, that no number of eggs doesn't matter. You can have it be the number of eggs is the most important, and who ends first doesn't matter. You can make and change the rules depending on what you want to do. That's part of the reason you should make your own board game instead of just buying one, because then you can make up whatever you want. You can change the rules whenever you want. And you can have your friend make the same game board, and you guys can play over video chat. I think that's such a fun idea. All right. What do you all think? Does anybody need any questions answered? Do you have any trouble that you need help solving? Anything else I can do to help you get ready for Friday with Alicia? So for those of you who don't already know, Alicia on Friday is going to help you make, if you want to make any cards that go with your game, she's going to help you figure out how to make your pieces move. So if you want to use a spinner, cards, dice, maybe there's another way that I haven't thought of that you can move around. I do want to show you real fast, since we have another quick minute. If you decide to do the vertical game board, you're going to want like a piece of cardboard, a thin piece of cardboard, like a cereal box, like what do they call that? Chipboard, thin cardboard so that the magnet can reach. Or depending on how you can get it to stand, you may be able to use a piece of paper if you can get a stand to work with it. I'm just borrowing the stand from Gnomes at Night. And then yeah, chipboard's going to work much better. And then you'll be able to move the pieces. And so all the games that I showed you today are competition games. You can also do cooperative games. So one of the examples of Gnomes at Night is there's a treasure that you're trying to find, and you have to find the treasure on the cards. So the spyglass is on this side, but it's not on this side. So both players can only see their own side, and they have to work together to get around the maze to get to the cards that they find. So that's another way that you can play. And I know I say this all the time, but I am particularly interested in what kind of games you all come up with. I think that for all of us being at home, I don't know about you, but I know my family's played just about all of our games, probably more than once. And this is a really neat opportunity to come up with a way for you to keep yourself and your friends and your families entertained, where it's really unique and it's all about you and what you want to do. And I'm so curious what you all will come up with. So I'm really, really pleased. Send something because I want to see what you all make. Yes, Natalie's reminding you, please send them in. She has her email in the chat there. I really want to see what you all make. I'm so curious. All right. Any questions, comments, great ideas, things I can help with before we have to close down for the day? All right, let me ask you this. Is anyone making a game that they can use magnet pieces with? I'm so curious. Katrina and Sophia. Okay, you used 2 plates and made a secret compartment to keep the pieces. We didn't even get into that sort of stuff. Like how cool you can make your game board of all these other little things, hidden compartments, trap doors. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Natalie, we may need to do a whole other session on games.
I love playing games. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm really excited. I hope I get to see some pictures of what you guys have been building because this was really cool today.
Agreed. And I also, tomorrow, during my session tomorrow, it's a chat and not a webinar. So if any of you want to come back tomorrow, we can build on what we started today. Or we're also going to make a book of games that you can play outside tomorrow. So not necessarily like board game based games, but games that you play outside that we can come up with our own rules and make a book. And then maybe, Natalie, because I'm always full of ideas, maybe we can have a Ridgeville book of outdoor games that we put together.
I love that. I love that.
I like that idea too.
Hey, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Jacy.
You're so welcome.
This was so fun. Thank you everybody for coming. And we will see you this afternoon or tomorrow or Friday or next week. But whenever it is. Can't wait. Ridgeville hug.
Ridgeville hug. So nice to spend time with you all today. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.